Hi and welcome to another carpenter tutoring tutorial. I'm Amy and today we are going to talk about two methods that you can use for solving for variables and equations that contain lots and lots of decimals, especially when the coefficient in front of your variable is also a decimal. While I say two methods, there's really only one method here, one method that causes us to change anything, I should say, because our first method is just to grin and bear it. Just because there are a bunch of decimals in a problem Barrett method can be a nice one because it allows you to continue without changing anything and risking making a mistake in changing things. However, if you don't have a calculator, then the getting rid of decimals method might be better. But let's take a look at the grin and bear it method first, getting comfortable with using decimals in lots of places and lots of operations. I will be using a calculator to help me on each step, so if you're following along, please feel free to do the same. So we will talk about what to do here. Since we already have all like terms combined on both sides of the equation, we can jump right into SADMEP. And as a reminder, SADMEP is our opposite order of operations that we use to solve for variables. So it tells us to break subtraction and addition relationships with our variable first. I see that I do have an addition relationship between x and 22.95, so I can break that relationship by using subtraction, and I subtract by what I want to get rid of, which is this 22.95. And make sure to do that on both sides of the equation, and that gives me 0.025x equals 0.7. Then from here, I still have a relationship between the 0.025 and x, and that is a multiplication relationship. So I can break that multiplication relationship with division, and I divide by what I want to get rid of, which is this 0.025. Have to make sure to do that on both sides, and that will give me x equals 28. So again, this method is most accessible when you have a calculator available to you, especially if it is a graphing calculator like the TI-84 Plus. What I really love about using this calculator for these kinds of problems is I can enter in each step one at a time, but I don't have to retype the answer. Instead, I can just start doing the next operation, and that will pull down my previous answer and make it the first number of what I'm working with. So really nice to work with them that way. Some other calculators besides the TI-84 Plus also function that way, but for example, a phone calculator probably wouldn't. Unless you have an app on your phone that mimics one of these more advanced calculators, switching to the other method might be a little bit better if you're using a phone-based calculator. But let's say either because you don't have a calculator or just because you really hate decimals, you want to solve this without any decimals in here. The way that we can do this is moving decimal points in all of our terms, and we want to be most concerned with decimals as they relate to the variable term. So in this case, my variable term has three numbers after the decimal point, the 0, the 2, and the 5. If I want to move that decimal point out of the way, I have to make 3 jumps to get behind all those numbers. So 1, 2, 3. I can mimic that motion of the decimal point in all of the other terms in this equation and thereby get rid of all of my decimals. So I will jump 3 spaces to the right, 1, 2, 3, filling in any blank spots with zeros. And again, 1, 2, 3, filling in any blank spots with zeros. So now I can rewrite this problem as 25x plus 22,950 equals 23,650. Now I can start to solve normally. So I see this addition relationship that SADMEP tells me to break first. I'll break it with subtraction by subtracting 22,950 from both sides. These are still pretty big numbers, so a calculator can still be helpful, but we should end up with 25x equals 700. And then I can divide by 25 on both sides to break the multiplication relationship between 25 and x, and that will give me x equals 28. So as we can see, both methods are still going to lead to the same answer. It's just a question of how you feel most comfortable getting there. Personally, I like to use the grin and bear it method because I almost always have a calculator accessible to me, and it makes it less likely for me to make a mistake in moving the decimal point and then mess up my answer because of that mistake. The other thing that can get in the way with the get rid of the decimals method is that, as we saw here, we took numbers that included decimals but were still relatively comfortable, like 22.95, and turned them into huge values that can feel somewhat difficult to work with, like 22,950. If you're not afraid of big numbers, great, this can be an awesome method for you. But if you don't like working with stuff that big, then sticking with the grin and bear it and using your calculator to guide you can be the most effective method. Honestly, either of these will work. It just comes down to a question of which one you like the best. I hope it's been helpful to walk through these examples together, and hopefully you've decided which method you like to use and will use in future problems. If you have any questions or other topics that you'd like to see covered, please let me know in the comments. If you enjoy our content, I hope you'll consider subscribing to our channel and liking this video. Thanks so much for spending part of your day with me, and I'll catch you next time.